Good day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan Battle video. In this final video on the Vegeta's Story Edition Red Zone, we're going to be taking a look at the GT Heroes Challenge. Now, honestly, the GT Heroes Challenge is going to employ pretty much the same strategy we've used on the stage in general. The whole Gogeta Vegeta combo active ability. It's actually a very simple concept. Basically, one lead is Gogeta, one lead is Vegeta. You use a Whis item for the first couple turns. That basically lets you have maxed out survivability. The moment those two units can have both of their active skills active, you activate both of them immediately. This makes both of them do insane damage, and the Vegeta especially pretty much one-shots the Goku unit. So it's really that simple. Obviously, if Vegeta doesn't one-shot, then you still end up doing a ton of damage, which makes it a lot easier afterwards. GT Heroes as a team is not too bad. Obviously, if you're looking to run GT Heroes, you don't actually have a lot of options, because your only leads at this point in time are like the SS4 Goku, or you've got obviously the SS4 Duo. Generally speaking, obviously, I think in terms of roster, it's a good team if you've got the 6 units that are really, really strong, which are all obviously the more giant ape power orientated units. So you've got the 7th year anniversary units, that's great. Then you've got obviously the Int Goku SS4, who's alright with an item. Then you've got the most important one, the AGL Giant Ape Goku, very, very important. And then you need obviously the 2 EZA units. You need the Vegeta and the Goku GT, who are both obviously very, very, very good, nice floating units. So I think it really comes down to, if you have those 5 units, then the run is very easy, because like I said, you can just use either a Tech Gogeta for yourself, or an AGL, Tech Vegeta for yourself, or an AGL Gogeta, or you can use whatever. But I think, if you don't have those, then obviously, it's a little bit harder for you to potentially run the team, or run the strategy, or do the event this way. I think for me, the real question that kind of pops up, at least I think a lot, is mainly, well, what's the gist with this event? And I think for me, it's just that Goku has so much health, and he can fire so many super attacks in one turn. It's just very hard to have a team that can handle all of that build-up. Because the thing is Goku raises his attack by 80%. So it's never really the first super attack. I find that's the big issue. It's actually always the second one that's a huge problem, because the second super attack, generally speaking, is very strong, because it's now been boosted by the first one. Comes out incredibly powerful. It usually comes at a unit that's not your first slot unit, so now it's hitting your second slot or your third slot, and that's generally, I find, for most players, the biggest struggle. The fact that you go basically from having a fairly simple situation where you can rely on your first slot tank, to now not being able to, because Goku's now supering for the second time in the turn. He's built up, and now he's doing some serious damage. I think aside from that, generally you're quite fine. So you want to go for a far tankier team, I find. Goku also just has a lot of health, and I find that all that health just makes it a very long fight that leaves you with a lot of avenues where things could potentially not go your way, and you could potentially be taking too much damage, or you could end up having a unit not dodge it, well, can't dodge a super because it's guaranteed hit, but you could have a unit not maybe tank something the right way, or activate their nullification. There's lots of different potential pitfalls that could cause you issues. So I think for me overall, that's definitely something I think you need to be a little bit aware of. But I think aside from that, fairly straightforward. At least that would be my suggestion. Like I say, I think if you have the units and you just use the Vegeta strategy, I think you tend to do fine, because like I said, you just have an overwhelming amount of offense, and all that damage in that turn tends to give you like a very strong foundation where you do so much damage that realistically, I think, at least from my perspective, it becomes almost easy, because Vegeta knocks out so much damage that now you can actually have a fairly strong time with it overall. Obviously, there are always issues. I do think this is probably one of the more limited challenges because of the fact that you're using GT heroes, giant hit power, and you're quite limited. Like you're quite limited in terms of options. It's not so easy. I think that's something definitely that you need to be aware of, because it is definitely challenging in its own kind of way. So I think that limited roster is always a problem. But I think it is what it is. For me, you just have to like see how it goes and take it from there. But I think overall, I think it's a fairly straightforward process, and honestly, I'm pretty happy with how this all worked out. It's a very similar strategy I've used for this one. Don't think it should shock any players really. But I would say overall, it's a fairly simple strategy, one that works well, but is a very limited strategy. There's not a lot of roster options, and if you're looking at complete GT heroes, I don't think, barring maybe running a full giant A power lineup, there's not really too many changes. So rather just run this version instead, I think. But that's it from me. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, take care, stay safe, and that's it from me. Thanks for watching. Bye.